It's 2 a.m. again. The world is quiet, but your mind won't stop replaying the same memories like old songs you can't delete. You tell yourself you miss them, but if you're honest, that's not it. You don't miss them. You miss who you were when they were here. You miss how light you felt, how every small thing, a text, a laugh, a plan, seemed to mean something. You miss the person who believed things would last. You look at their photos, but what you're really searching for is a version of you, the one who smiled without pretending, who still felt seen, who didn't yet know what it means to lose yourself in someone else. That's the quiet truth behind heartbreak. You don't lose people, you lose the part of yourself that loved through them. Every "I miss you" really means, I miss who I used to be. There is a sound to absence. It is not silence. Silence is a canvas, a vast and patient emptiness waiting for a mark. Absence is a tear in that canvas, a violent rupture of the expected. It is the sound the world makes when a piece of it has been removed. You hear it most clearly in the moments between heartbeats, in the pause after a question you can no longer ask. It is the low hum of the refrigerator, an appliance that has always been there, a white noise you learned to ignore. Your brain, in its relentless pursuit of efficiency, had long ago filed that sound under unimportant. It was part of the background score to a life shared, the constant, unnoticed hum beneath laughter, arguments, and the sound of two people breathing in the dark. Now, it is no longer background. It is the only sound left. A solo instrument in an orchestra that has packed up and gone home without a final bow. The brain, confused by the sudden void, latches onto it, amplifies it. This hum becomes the sound of what remains. The sound of alone, it is the creak of floorboards under a single person's weight. A sound that has lost its echo, its reply. Before, this sound was a signal: I'm home, I'm in the kitchen, I'm coming to bed. It was a part of a silent language. Now, the language is dead. The sound is just a sound, a mechanical complaint of wood against nail, signifying nothing but your own solitary mass moving through a space that feels suddenly, unnervingly vast. This is the first lesson of loss. The world does not become quieter. It becomes louder with the things you never noticed before. The ticking of the clock becomes a countdown to nothing. The whisper of the wind against the window pane sounds like a question. The very architecture of your life begins to speak in a new, unsettling tense. When someone leaves, they don't just take their belongings, the half-used bottle of shampoo, the worn-out sweater, the stack of books on the nightstand. They take the invisible furniture. They take the shared assumptions, the inside jokes that were the invisible scaffolding of your days. They take a universe of small sounds, of shared rhythms, of a particular way the light used to fall in the afternoon as they passed by the window. They take the future you had unconsciously mapped out, a territory that now shows on your internal GPS as a grey, unexplored void. They leave behind a room, a quiet room. This room is not a metaphor. It is a neurological and psychological reality. It is a space built inside you, in the vacant real estate of your mind once occupied by their presence. Our brains are prediction machines. They build models of the world based on routine and repetition. They expected that person to be there, in that chair, at that time. When the data no longer matches the model, the brain registers an error message. That feeling of reaching for their hand and finding only air. That phantom sensation of hearing their key in the door that is a ghost generated by your own predictive code. It is the mind's desperate attempt to reconcile the map it holds with a territory that has been irrevocably altered at first. This inner room is unbearable. The mind abhors a vacuum, and so it rushes to fill the empty space with ghosts. It becomes a projection booth, a memory theater. You become the sole audience member and the curator of a grim exhibition. You replay conversations on a loop, searching for clues, for the exact moment the fault line appeared. You project their shadow onto empty chairs, imagining what they would say, how they would laugh at a joke only they would understand. You are living with a ghost, but the ghost is not them. It is the echo of your own expectations. This is the theater of the self, and you have been an actor in it for a very long time. Nietzsche warned us of this. He saw that most people are actors in a play they didn't write. Their smiles, their opinions, their very tone of voice, all shaped by what kept them safe in the world, by the roles they were assigned in childhood, by the scripts handed to them by society. And this is where the true story begins. Because in this play of two actors, your co-star has just walked off stage. The dialogue has ceased. The shared narrative has collapsed, and you are left standing alone under a single, harsh spotlight, the audience of your own thoughts, watching, waiting. The mask you wore for them, the character you played in their presence, is now useless. It has no one to perform for. What is a mask without a face to see it? What is a character without a story to inhabit? This is the great, terrifying gift of loss. It introduces you to yourself. Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He didn't mean this as an insult, as a condemnation of inauthenticity. He meant it as a sober recognition of reality, a warning not to confuse the mask with the person beneath. We build these masks not because we are fake, but because we are scared. We wear them for survival. Consider the mask of the overly kind, the person who agrees too readily, who apologizes too often, whose kindness feels less like a gift and more like a plea. This is not kindness. This is a mask forged in the fires of a deep, primal terror of rejection. It is a survival strategy that whispers, "If I am always pleasant, always accommodating, they will never have a reason to leave me." It is a beautiful, intricate cage built of fear. Consider the mask of the strong, the one who never breaks, who handles every crisis with a stoic calm, who insists, "I'm fine," while the world burns around them. This person seems powerful, unbreakable, but Nietzsche would urge you to look closer. This strength is often a fortress built around a crumbling interior. It is a desperate performance of competence from someone terrified of being seen as weak, as a burden, as someone who needs help. They hold up the world because they are terrified of what will happen if they let it drop. Even virtue can be a mask. The person who loudly proclaims their purity, who is always correcting others, always signaling their moral superiority. Nietzsche saw this as the will to power in disguise. Their morality is not a guide for living. It is a weapon for judgment, a way to feel superior while hiding their own perceived inferiority. Real goodness doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. The most deceptive thing about these masks is that we are often the last to know we are wearing them. They are not a conscious deception. They are a deeply ingrained part of our operating system, a set of behaviors and beliefs adopted so long ago that we mistake them for our true self. We are not hiding from others. We are hiding from ourselves. We tell ourselves the lies first. The lie that our kindness is selfless. The lie that our strength is infinite. The lie that our morality is pure. We rehearse these lines so often, we come to believe them. And the person who left, They wore a mask too, and you fell in love with that mask, just as they fell in love with yours. Your performance of easygoing met their performance of in control. Your mask of nurturer met their mask of protector. It was a perfect, unspoken agreement. A dance of two facades now. The dance is over. In the quiet room, there is no one to perform for. The audience has left. The lights have dimmed. Your mask, heavy and suddenly absurd, begins to slip. This is the moment of tension, the first crack in the persona. When the polite smile falters, when the forced optimism finally breaks, when the carefully constructed narrative of "I am fine" collapses under the sheer weight of reality. That discomfort, that raw, unscripted moment of pain, that is where the real person begins to emerge. This is why the quiet room is so terrifying. It is a place of profound confrontation. You are not just confronting the loss of a person. You are confronting the loss of the person you pretended to be for them. You are being introduced to the stranger who lives beneath your own skin. The one who is not always kind, not always strong. The one whose motives are not always pure. The one who is messy and contradictory and real. And so, our story begins here. Not with the story of the one who left. That chapter is closed. Their tale will continue elsewhere, narrated by another voice. This story is about the one who remains. It is about what you will do now, in the deafening hum of the quiet room. With this heavy mask in your hands and a new, unfamiliar face staring back at you from the mirror. The first thing you do in the quiet room is become its curator. You must fill the echoing space, and so you decorate it with memories. You hang them on the walls like priceless portraits, each one carefully chosen, framed in the best possible light. A snapshot of a shared laugh, the feeling of a hand in yours, a lazy Sunday morning that felt infinite. This is the first gallery of grief, a museum dedicated to a single, lost artifact. But memory is not a photograph. It is not a perfect, stable recording of light and shadow captured in a single instant. If you look closer, you will see the brushstrokes. You will see where the colors have been blended to soften a harsh line, where a shadow has been painted over to hide an inconvenient detail. Memory is a painting, and you are the artist, the curator, and the sole visitor to this gallery, holding the brush in a trembling hand. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient intuition. A memory is not a single file stored neatly in a cerebral cabinet. It is a decentralized pattern, a ghost in the machine, an echo woven into the fabric of countless neural connections. When you remember, you are not retrieving a thing. You are reenacting a process. Your brain painstakingly reassembles the memory from scattered fragments of sensory data, emotion, and narrative. It is an act of resurrection, and with every resurrection, the story changes. Details are lost, emotions are amplified, timelines are compressed. Your memory of the event is not the event itself, but a memory of the last time you remembered it. It is a copy of a copy of a copy, degrading with each viewing, yet gaining emotional weight. This is why, in the first days of the quiet room, you paint a golden age dot, the ancient Greek poet Hesiod, in his attempt to map the long sorrow of human existence, spoke of a time when mortals lived like gods themselves, free from pain, untouched by age, and unburdened by toil. In this golden age, the earth gave forth her bounty without coaxing, offering harvests in every season. There was no need for laws or swords, for kings or coins. When these mortals' time came, they did not wither or suffer, but died as if falling into a gentle sleep. It was a life of perfect, effortless harmony, a myth of a past that never was. This is the myth you build inside yourself. You construct a golden age of the relationship, a time before the fall. In your memory painting, every day was sunny, every conversation was profound, every touch was electric. You conveniently forget the long silences, the anxieties, the small but significant compromises that felt like surrenders. You omit the slow, creeping erosion of connection, the hairline fractures that were spreading across the foundation long before the earthquake hit. This act of curation is not a lie, not in the way we typically think of it. It is a mercy. It is a form of psychological self-preservation. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this with terrifying clarity. He knew that people don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. The grand, sweeping statements you make in the early days of grief, "It was perfect. I'll never find anything like that again. I have no regrets," are not falsehoods designed to deceive your friends or family. They are lies you've rehearsed so often in the echo chamber of your own mind that you've come to believe them. Nietzsche saw this self-deception not as an evil, but as a defense mechanism, a way to keep functioning in a world that has become suddenly, overwhelmingly painful. It is easier to mourn a masterpiece that was stolen than it is to mourn a flawed, complicated collaboration that simply ran its course. It is easier to be the tragic victim of a perfect love lost than it is to be the co-author of an imperfect story that ended. The myth of the Golden Age simplifies your grief. It gives you a clear villain fate, the other person circumstance, and a clear victim, you. It is a clean, simple narrative. And in the chaotic agony of heartbreak, the mind craves simplicity above all else. But this curated gallery, this temple to a perfect past, cannot hold, because memory is a landscape, not a single room. It has its own weather system, and eventually the storms will come. A forgotten photograph falls from a book. A friend casually mentions a memory you had conveniently suppressed. You hear a song on the radio, and it doesn't just bring back the memory of dancing in the kitchen. It brings back the argument you had right before, the one where a cruel truth was spoken, a truth you immediately buried, and the monster awakens in the Greek pantheon. The primordial mother, Gaia, the earth itself, did not only give birth to the beautiful sky and the shining titans. Her womb was also filled with monstrous children beings of immense strength and terrible dread. First came the Cyclopes, each with a single eye burning like a forge. Then came the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed ones, so enormous and terrible to behold that their own father, Uranus, was ashamed and frightened by them. In his fear, he forced them back into Gaia's womb, hiding them away in the depths of the earth. Gaia groaned beneath their weight, suffering with every breath, the pain of bearing what she could not release. This is the dual nature of our own internal landscape. Our memory, like Gaia, gives birth to everything. It gives birth to the titans of our golden age, the grand elemental forces of love, joy, and connection that held up our world. But it also gives birth to monsters, the memories of betrayal, of cruelty, of your own failures, of their flaws. These are the memories so terrible that, like Uranus, you force them back into the subconscious, deep into the earth of your psyche, hoping they will remain buried forever. But they are alive. They groan beneath the surface. They are the source of that low, persistent ache that hums beneath your curated grief for the perfect past. The anxiety you can't name, the sadness that ambushes you in the middle of a perfectly fine day that is the stirring of the hundred-handed monster of a truth you have not yet faced. Healing, then, is not the act of polishing the portraits in your gallery. It is the terrifying, necessary act of excavation. You must become an archaeologist of your own heart. An archaeologist does not discard the broken pottery to display only the golden crown. They understand that the broken pot tells a truer story of how life was actually lived. So you must dig. You must pick up the spade and break the pristine ground of your Golden Age myth. You must unearth the artifacts of what Hesiod called the Silver Age, the time of pride and arrogance, of mortals who refused to honor the gods, a mirror for the times you both let pride get in the way of forgiveness. You must dig deeper and find the evidence of the Bronze Age, a time of creatures of war, whose hearts were cast from hard metal, who lived for battle and died by it. This is the age of your own conflict, the cruel words that, once spoken, could not be unsaid, the battles for power, the slow, grinding war of attrition that wore you both down. This archaeological dig is the most painful work a human can do. It requires you to sit with the inconsistencies, to hold the contradictions in your hands, to accept that the same person who made you feel safer than ever before was also the source of your deepest anxieties, to admit that the relationship that brought you incandescent joy also contained profound loneliness. Only when you have unearthed these artifacts can you see the truth. You are not mourning a perfect past. You are mourning a story, a complex, contradictory, beautiful, and painful story that you helped write. And admitting that you were a co-author means admitting your own agency, your own flaws, your own part in the ending. This is a terrifying responsibility, but it is also the beginning of your freedom. Because if you were the author of that story, you can be the author of the next one. You can finally walk out of the gallery of ghosts. You can step into the raw, windswept, and authentic landscape of your own memory. It is not as beautiful as the myth, but it is real. And it is from this real ground, with its buried monsters and its broken pottery, that something new can finally begin to grow. After you've walked through the halls of your memory, you have to face something even more difficult: your own reflection. The truth is, we don't really fall in love with another person. We fall in love with the version of ourselves we see in their eyes. Think of your partner as a mirror. We all learn who we are by seeing ourselves through the eyes of others. When they smiled at you, you felt interesting. When they admired you, you felt strong. Their love made you feel lovable. In their gaze, you saw the best version of yourself, and you came to believe in it. This is why losing them feels like losing yourself. The mirror is taken away. You look for your reflection, but it's gone. You feel invisible, unsure of who you are now that no one is there to show you. It's a terrifying feeling, as if you've become a ghost in your own life. This feeling of connection often feels like magic, as if you've found a missing piece of yourself. In a way, you have. Inside each of us is an idea of our other half, a collection of qualities we admire but feel we lack. If you're a quiet person, you might be drawn to someone bold and adventurous. If you're very logical, you might fall for someone creative and free-spirited. When you meet someone who seems to have those qualities, it feels like you recognize them, but you're not just seeing them. You're seeing a part of yourself you wish you could be, projected onto them. They become the carrier of your own hidden potential. So when they leave, it feels like that adventurous or creative part of you has left too. You feel incomplete because it seems like the best parts of your life were contained in them. The real journey of healing is realizing that those qualities were never theirs to begin with. They were a reflection of a potential that has been inside you all along. But the mirror in a relationship doesn't just show you the good things. It also shows you the parts of yourself you don't like to admit exist. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche had a sharp insight into this. He said that what we hate in others is often what we are hiding in ourselves. Think about the things that truly bothered you about your partner, those little habits or personality traits that you criticized over and over. That criticism was never really about them. It was a secret confession about you. For example, if their neediness or desire for reassurance annoyed you, perhaps it's because you were terrified of your own need for help and vulnerability. If their arrogance or self-confidence bothered you, it might have been reflecting your own secret feelings of not being good enough. In this way, your complaints about them were like a map pointing directly to your own insecurities. As the source says, projection isn't just a defense mechanism. It's a confession. You were unconsciously using them to see the parts of yourself you were afraid to face directly, and they were doing the same thing with you. A relationship is often a silent agreement, a dance of two people's hidden fears. Often, these fears fit together like puzzle pieces. One person might be terrified of being abandoned, so they learn to be the perfect, pleasing partner who never causes trouble. They might be drawn to someone who is afraid of getting too close, who acts distant and independent to feel safe. So you have one person always chasing connection, and the other person always pulling away. It's a painful dance, but for a while it works because it feels familiar to both of them. The relationship becomes a way to manage your deepest fears without ever having to face them. When the relationship ends, the dance stops. The music cuts out. And for the first time, you have to stand still and face the fear you've been dancing around for so long. The fear of being alone. The fear of not being good enough. The fear of true intimacy. So what do you do now that the mirror is shattered and the dance is over? The first impulse is to find a new partner, a new mirror, to start the same dance all over again. But the real path to healing is to stay in the quiet room for a while. It's about learning to see yourself without a reflection. It means finding those good qualities you admired in them, that strength, that creativity, that joy inside of yourself. It also means having the courage to look at the things you criticized in them and admitting that is a part of me, too. The goal is not to find someone else to make you feel whole. It is to do the brave work of realizing that you were whole all along. The quiet room you inhabit, the one built from silence and memory, has a new wing. It was constructed in the modern age. This wing is not quiet at all. It is buzzing with a constant, low hum of information. It is a room with 1,000 windows, and through each one, you can look out into the lives of others. But they cannot look in and see you. In this room, you become a ghost. You can drift through the digital hallways of your past, invisible and silent. This is a stage of grief our ancestors never knew. They had only fading photographs and handwritten letters. Their ghosts grew fainter with time, the ink fading, the paper yellowing. Your ghosts are preserved in perfect high definition. They do not age. They do not fade. They live forever in the cold, bright light of a server farm, waiting for you to visit. This digital annex is where you go when the silence of the main room becomes too loud. You tell yourself you are just curious, just checking in. But it is a form of self-harm disguised as research. You open the window that looks into their life, and what you see is a performance. You see photos of them smiling, surrounded by friends, on a trip to a place you always wanted to go together. You see them celebrating a new job, a new hobby, a new life. The story their profile tells is clear. I am happy. I am thriving. I have moved on. And with each post, a brick is laid in the wall of your own despair. You compare this bright, curated performance to the quiet, messy reality of your own grief. You are sitting in the dark, and they are living in the sun. But you must remember the wisdom of the mask. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw through this kind of performance. He understood that the louder the performance, the emptier the core. The person who feels the need to constantly broadcast their happiness is often doing so from a place of deep insecurity. They are not just posting for their friends or followers. They are posting for an audience of one, themselves. They are trying to build a new identity out of likes and comments, hoping that if they perform happiness well enough, they will eventually start to feel it. As one of the truths suggests, when someone posts obsessively about happiness, it may be a cry for help. Their social media profile is their new mask, a carefully constructed character designed to project an image of success and recovery. They are acting in a new play, and you are torturing yourself by watching from the wings. You are comparing your real, behind-the-scenes struggle with their highlight reel. It is an unwinnable game designed to convince you that you have lost the breakup, that your pain is a sign of failure, when in fact, it is a sign that you are honestly processing your reality instead of performing a new one. But there is a deeper, more ancient danger at play in this digital room. It is the danger of becoming permanently bound to the past. In the old myths, the underworld, the land of the dead, was a place you could visit, but from which you could not easily return. The story of Persephone is a powerful map for this journey. She was a goddess of life and springtime, but was taken by Hades into the dark, silent world below. Her mother, the goddess of the harvest, grieved so deeply that the world grew cold and barren. A deal was eventually struck for Persephone's return, but there was one condition. Because she had eaten just a few pomegranate seeds while in the underworld, she was bound to it forever. She would have to return for part of every year, bringing winter and sorrow to the world. A few small seeds were enough to create an unbreakable bond. Your phone is your underworld. The gallery of old photos, the archived text messages, their social media profile, this is your land of the dead. It is a place where the past is kept artificially alive. A kingdom of shadows you carry in your pocket, and every time you visit, you eat a seed. Every time you click on their profile to see who they're with, you are eating a pomegranate seed. Every time you reread an old text message that said, "I love you," you are eating a seed. Every time you scroll back to a photo from your golden age, smiling at a version of two people who no longer exist, you are eating another seed. Each act seems so small, so harmless, a moment of weakness. But with each seed you consume, you strengthen your bond to the underworld of the past. You ensure your own return to a place of grief. You are choosing to bring winter into your own heart over and over again. This cycle is not just metaphorical, it is neurological. Each brief visit to the past, even if it brings a pang of pain, also provides a small hit of the familiar, a chemical whisper of a time you felt safe and loved. This creates a dopamine feedback loop, a form of addiction to your own sorrow. You become a ghost, haunting the digital ruins of your own life, rattling the chains of your own memories. There is a profound difference between the healthy work of memory and this unhealthy digital haunting. The work we spoke of before, the archaeology of the heart, an active, intentional process. It is the act of digging into the past with a purpose, to understand the whole story, to see the cracks in the foundation, to learn the lessons. An archaeologist seeks to understand a civilization that is gone. They learn from it, and then they return to the living world with new wisdom. Digital nostalgia is the opposite. It is passive, aimless, and compulsive. You are not seeking wisdom. You are seeking a ghost. You are not trying to understand the past. You are trying to relive it, even if it hurts. It is the difference between studying a map of a lost city and trying to move back into its ruins. One brings closure. The other guarantees you will remain trapped. So how do you leave the underworld for good? How do you refuse to eat any more seeds? In the past, we had rituals for this. The ceremonial burning of old letters, the returning of gifts, the packing away of photographs into a box in the attic. These were physical acts that signaled to the psyche that a chapter was truly over. In our digital age, we have lost these rituals. An ending is no longer an ending. It is a suspension. The connection is not severed. It is just dormant. You must therefore create a new ritual, a modern ceremony of release. This is one of the bravest and most necessary acts of self-love in the modern world. You must consciously choose to leave the underworld. This means deleting the photos, not because the memories are bad, but because you are no longer a curator of a museum. You are the architect of a future. It means archiving the text messages, placing them in a digital box you do not open, and most difficult of all, it means unfollowing, blocking, muting. This act can feel cruel or petty or like a sign of weakness. Our culture might tell you that the strong thing to do is to remain friends, to prove you are over it by being able to see their life without flinching. This is a lie. It is another mask, the mask of the unbothered, and it does not serve you. The truly strong act is to protect your own peace. The brave act is to admit, I cannot watch this and heal. It is not an act of anger towards them. It is an act of profound compassion for yourself. It is you standing at the gates of the underworld and choosing, finally, to walk up into the sunlight. The moment after you do it, there will not be a sudden burst of joy. There will be a quiet, clean, and slightly terrifying emptiness. The 1,000 windows in your quiet room will finally be closed. The constant, buzzing hum of their life will be gone, and the silence that rushes in to fill the space will be your own. For the first time, there are no ghosts to watch, no performances to analyze, no seeds to eat. There is only you in your room, in the present moment. It is from this true silence, this sacred emptiness, that your new life can finally begin. There comes a time when the quiet room is no longer a prison. After you have walked through the haunted galleries of memory, after you have shattered the distorting mirrors of projection, after you have closed the 1,000 windows of the digital world, you are left with something new. You are left with a profound and sacred emptiness. For a long time, this emptiness was a source of terror. It was a void that threatened to swallow you. But now, after the long journey through the darkness, your eyes have adjusted. You can see it for what it truly is. It is not a void. It is a space. It is a blank canvas. The quiet room is no longer a prison. It has become a workshop. The pain you endured was not pointless. It was a tool. Think of a sculptor who receives a rough, unmarked block of stone. To find the statue within, they cannot add anything to it. They must take things away. They must use a hammer and a chisel, and with violent, percussive blows, They must break away the pieces that are not the sculpture. The process is loud, messy, and destructive, but it is not an act of destruction. It is an act of revelation. Your grief was the chisel. It broke away the masks you wore for others. It shattered the identity you borrowed from your relationship. It stripped away the roles you were playing and the lies you were telling yourself. It was an agonizing process, but it did not destroy you. It revealed you. It broke away everything that was not essential, leaving you with the raw, strong, and authentic material of your own soul. Now, in the quiet of the workshop, the real work can begin. The work of reconstruction. This is a journey every hero in every myth has had to take. It is the journey inward and the journey back out. We think of heroes as people who slay external dragons. But their most important battle is always the one fought in the darkness of their own soul. The final and most harrowing of Heracles' 12 labors was not to slay a monster, but to descend into the underworld itself and return. He had to walk into the land of the dead, confront the ultimate fear, and prove that he could come back. Your journey through the depths of your grief was your descent. You walked in the land of shadows. You spoke with the ghosts of your past. You faced the terror of your own annihilation. The most important part of that journey is not that you went, it is that you have returned. But you do not return the same. No hero ever does. You come back with a quiet wisdom, a new strength born not of invincibility, but of profound vulnerability. You cannot go back to being the person you were before the loss. That person died in the underworld. The goal is not to resurrect them. The goal is to step into the light as the person you have become. This new life begins with an act of radical honesty. For months, perhaps years, you have been practicing a form of self-deception. As Nietzsche knew, the lies you tell yourself are the most powerful. You have repeated the mantras of a false recovery. I'm fine. I'm over it. I don't care. You repeated them not to convince others, but to convince yourself, to build a thin wall between you and the overwhelming pain. The reconstruction begins the moment you stop repeating these lines. It begins when you can finally stand in the quiet room and admit the simple, terrifying truth. I am not fine. This still hurts, and I do care. This honesty is the foundation for your new structure. Because once you stop lying to yourself, you can start asking honest questions. And the most important question is not, why did they leave? But why was I in that story to begin with? The answer almost always lies in a much older story. Nietzsche believed that as adults, we are not acting from our conscious beliefs as much as we are acting out the scripts of our childhood. We repeat the roles we were assigned, the dynamics we never escaped. So, take a moment. Ask yourself, what role did you play in your family? Were you the peacemaker, the one who always smoothed things over to keep the peace? Were you the high achiever, the one who had to earn love through success? Were you the quiet one, the child who learned that being invisible was the safest way to exist? Now, look at the relationship that ended. Were you playing that same role? The source explains this phenomenon with painful clarity. A person who was never heard as a child becomes an adult who never listens. A person who had to earn love becomes someone who performs for affection, even when it's toxic. You may think you chose your partner out of love, but it is more likely you chose them because they allowed you to keep playing your familiar role. The peacemaker finds someone who creates chaos. The performer finds an audience who is hard to please. The invisible child finds someone who doesn't truly see them. Understanding This is like a key turning in a lock you never knew was there. You realize the end of the relationship was not a failure. It was a graduation. You had finally grown too big for that small, familiar role. The pain you are feeling is not just the pain of a breakup. It is the growing pains of your own soul, finally refusing to act out a script that was keeping you small. With this knowledge, you can begin to rebuild. But how do you rebuild something that has been shattered? You do not try to glue it back together perfectly. You do not hide the cracks. You highlight them. In Japan, there is an art form called kintsugi, which means to join with gold. When a treasured piece of pottery breaks, it is not thrown away. The pieces are carefully reassembled, and the cracks are mended with a lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The philosophy behind this art is that the object is more beautiful and more valuable for having been broken. The cracks are not seen as imperfections to be hidden. They are celebrated as a part of the object's unique history, a testament to its survival. This is the art you must now practice on your own soul. Your heart has been broken. Your identity has been shattered into 100 pieces. The attempt to become as good as new is a lie. You will never be new again. You will be something far more valuable. You will be whole. You gather the broken pieces of yourself, your pain, your loneliness, your anger, your newfound wisdom, and you learn to hold them with compassion. You mend the cracks with the gold of self-awareness and forgiveness. You look at your scars, not with shame, but with reverence. The places where you were broken become the source of your greatest strength and beauty. You are no longer trying to hide your history. You are wearing it as a map of your resilience. This is the final purpose of the quiet room. It is your workshop, your studio. You are no longer a ghost, or a curator, or a visitor. You are the architect. You begin to furnish the room, not with memories of them, but with pieces of you. You put up a bookshelf and fill it with books that you want to read. You place a single, comfortable chair in the corner, a throne for your own solitude. You open the window, not to look into the past, but to let in the fresh air of the present. The journey is not about healing back to who you were. It is about becoming who you were always meant to be. The loss was not an interruption to your life. It was an initiation. It was the catalyst that forced you out of your old roles and into the brave, open space of your own future. You are not defined by what was lost. You are defined by what you choose to build in its place. The story of your grief is coming to an end, not because the grief has vanished, but because it has been transformed. You have walked the long and winding path through the country of your own heart, and now you have arrived at a new place. You have arrived at peace. The quiet room is still there. It will always be a part of your internal architecture, but it is no longer a haunted space. It is no longer a cold memorial to a life that is gone. The memories are no longer ghosts that ambush you in the dark. They are tapestries on the walls, telling the story of a journey you survived. The shattered mirror no longer shows a fragmented and lost version of yourself. Its pieces have been set into a mosaic, catching the light in new and interesting ways. The windows looking out into the digital world have been shuttered, not with anger, but with a quiet and resolute wisdom. You have learned that some views are not worth the price of your own peace. The goal was never to tear this room down, to pretend it didn't exist. That would be another form of self-deception. The goal was to change its function. What was once a prison has become a sanctuary. What was a source of pain has become a source of strength. It is like a quiet chapel within the grand cathedral of your soul, a place you can enter when you need to reflect. but a place you are no longer forced to live inside. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are a student of it. Your journey has mirrored the oldest stories our species has ever told. It began, as the world did, in a kind of chaos, a formless, painful void left in the wake of your loss. From that chaos, you tried to create order by building a myth, a false golden age of a perfect past, a time when you lived free from suffering, much like the first men in the ancient tales. But that myth could not hold. The monsters of your buried memories, the truths you had locked away, began to stir, and you knew you had to face them, and so began your hero's journey. Not with a sword and shield, but with courage and honesty. You made the descent into your own underworld. Like Heracles on his final labor, you walked into the darkness to confront the very essence of your fear. Like Odysseus, you summoned the shades of your past, not to live with them, but to learn from them. You listened to their stories, you felt their sorrow, and you learned that to be a king among the dead is no life at all. You have returned from that darkness, not unscarred, but transformed. This is the final stage of the heroic arc. The hero does not return to their old life, because that life no longer fits the person they have become. They return with a gift for their community, with a piece of wisdom that can only be earned in the dark. The gift you have brought back is your own wholeness. You have learned to practice the art of kintsugi on your own soul, mending your broken pieces with the gold of self. You have come to understand Nietzsche's most profound challenge: amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is not a passive acceptance of what has happened. It is an active, joyful embrace of your entire story. It is looking back at the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the loneliness, and saying, without bitterness, thank you. You were necessary. You understand now that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of despair was the pressure needed to create the person you are today. You would not trade your scars, because they are the proof of your resilience. You love your fate, not because it was easy, but because it was yours. And in this final stage of your journey, you realize the great truth that has been waiting for you all along. For so long, you believed that the solution to your pain was to fill the absence. You searched for a replacement, a distraction, another person to make the quiet room feel less empty. You believed the opposite of absence was presence. Their presence, now you know the truth. The opposite of absence is not presence. It is your own presence. What does that mean? It means showing up for your own life. It means being the primary witness to your own experience. It is the feeling of solitude without the sting of loneliness. It is the ability to sit in the quiet room by yourself and feel not a lack, but a sense of profound completeness. It is the quiet confidence that, as Nietzsche observed, doesn't compete. It just is. You no longer need the mirror of another's approval to feel real. You are your own source of validation. Your own presence is the light that fills the room. This journey, you see, did not end with an answer. It ended with a better question. For most of your grief, you were asking the questions of a victim. Why did this happen to me? How can I stop this pain? How can I get back what I lost? These are questions that look backward, questions that keep you tethered to the past. The journey has given you a new question. The question of an architect, an artist, a creator. Who am I now that I am free? Who are you now that you are no longer playing a childhood role? Who are you now that you no longer need a mirror to see yourself? What will you build in this quiet, sacred space you have cleared inside yourself? This is the question that will guide the rest of your life. It is a question that looks forward. The loss was not the end of your story. It was the end of a single, limiting chapter. It was the plot twist that allowed the real protagonist to finally take center stage. And so, we come full circle. Our journey began with sound. The jarring, artificial sound of a world with a piece missing. The hum of the refrigerator. The ticking of the clock. Listen now, in the quiet room, a new sound has emerged. It is not the echo of a ghost. It is not the buzz of a notification. It is not the noise of the world outside. It is the sound of your own breathing. Listen to it. It has been there all along. The steady, faithful rhythm beneath the noise of your pain. The anchor in the storm of your thoughts, in and out. The rise and fall of your own chest. The feeling of the air filling your lungs. The quiet, persistent, miraculous fact of your own life, continuing, steady, quiet, present. And in that sound, you finally understand. The journey was never about them. It was about returning to this, to the simple, profound, and unshakable truth of your own presence. It is enough. You are enough.